It's 5 minutes till 11, and Tom should be joining us any minute now. I'm so glad that you're joining us. It's so good to see you all here. Please don't hesitate to put a comment in the chat if you want me to address something, or if you're, would like clarification on any of the answers that we have from Tom. And I'm just so excited. I've been looking forward to this for over a month. When you get a chance, download your copy of the coach's notes that I wrote about Tom's book. It highlights the great ideas that he has in the book that I think are a really great guide to watching what we're going to do today. And then I've taken quotes out of his book and just added my 2 cents in what I've learned after really close to 1,000 conversations with autistic young adults, helping them systemize self-reliance. So, gosh, I hope Tom's going to come join us soon, and hoping the tech is going to work, because tech is tricky, and I'm just hoping to see him here really soon. There he is. Hi, Tom.
Hello.
Oh, I love it when the tech works, don't you?
There we go. Much better.
Much better. We are live already. I just got us started so that I could see you.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah. So what's it like in Colorado? Do I see snow in the window there?
Oh no, man. It's probably what it's like in Florida. We've been in the 70s.
Oh my goodness.
Super drought and warm, actually. So yeah.
Okay.
Not good, actually, but pleasant weather.
Yes, pleasant weather. Yeah, we've got dry leaves and in the 30s out here. I'm in Rochester, New York. So.
Oh, New York. Okay.
Yeah, up by the Finger Lakes.
Yeah, we haven't gotten any of that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So you guys aren't caught up to us yet.
No, like we need it. Yeah, ski season's been delayed for a lot of places, and yeah, it's been interesting.
Oh, shoot. Yeah. This whole global, whatever we want to call it, is really interesting. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. We got to get this fixed.
Right.
We do. We got to shrink our footprints and all that good stuff as much as we can.
Right.
Yeah. So, can you see my screen okay?
I can. Yes. Okay,
good. And so that's where the questions are going to pop up. I have 7 of them here, which I think 5, 6. Oh, the last one I didn't label number 7. I'm going to put that on there right now, just so we know where we are. And yeah, got a space there, Lynn. Come on, keyboard. Oh, you know what the problem happens to be? Is that you only get so many. It's going to have to be awkward because you only get so many spaces on
okay.
This guy. Yeah.
Well, if you do that and want to read a little bit of, if you have a paper copy too or whatever.
I actually have an electronic copy of the questions as well. Let's see if I can find out where I put them.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Oh, did I not put them up here? Oh, I know why. There they are. I got them here. Yes, but you can't see them, so sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah.
We'll just have a good conversation, which is fine.
Yeah. So how long have you been working at Humanx? How long have you had that organization?
I've been here for 10 years.
10 years.
10 years here. So.
Yeah. Did you guys start it? Did you start it up from scratch, or was it already there?
It was here. The school's been around since 1983. But when I came in, my principal and I, Katie Cahill, just made some tweaks on who we were working with and kind of narrowed down the range of students. So we're very broadly those neurodiverse individuals we're talking about. Yeah. All of our kids have some sort of learning disability, typically reasonable level of anxiety, executive functioning issues. About 45% of our students have a formal spectrum diagnosis, but we have 2E kids as well. So really, our real niche are those internalizer groups of kids. So students who, sensitive kids who feel things strongly and need a place that's quiet and individualized and small. And that makes a huge difference for them. especially if they're not in classes where they're having to navigate kids that might have similar backgrounds, but are more externalizers as their main coping skill. So it's a really good niche for these kids, because it's hard to find an environment that is tailored to them. So
my son attended the Norman Howard School, and his first day there, he came home and said, "Mom, finally a place where they teach the way I learn."
right.
So it sounds a lot, like
It
you,
does.
the Norman Howard School and your school probably have a lot in common.
Right.
And it was great because he could still participate in the extracurricular activities with his normal
Right.
school district. So he was in, track.
Right.
It was a heaven sent.
Right. Well, it's amazing when you get a group of students that are similar to each other. And I always say that our student population is all about 5 degrees off from one another. And it becomes authentic inclusion, where everyone's working on the same stuff, and you can still have groups of friends and some social hierarchy. And that's where the learning happens. This whole population are, experiential learners. And if you're in an environment where you're so different than the rest of the population, it's hard to have, it's hard to learn from social mistakes, or, or to build relationships. In other settings, I would have that scenario where you grab the kid that's here on the social hierarchy, to talk to this kid, and you grab that guy ahead of time, and you're like, "What are you doing? We're gonna have a conversation. We're gonna patch this up. You guys are gonna get along." And the student on the higher end of the hierarchy typically leaves frustrated with everybody, and then goes and tells their friends that the other student told on them, which wouldn't typically be the case. And then those two people don't ever have a chance to repair or build a friendship, right? But if you have this similarity, you can have differences, and you can learn to resolve conflicts. And for a lot of our kids, you can learn for the first time that you can have a friend, and friends can have arguments.
Yes.
And they can even say mean things to each other, and they can patch it up. And almost for all of our kids, they've never had that experience, where if they've made a mistake, they're off the birthday, card list, and they don't get invited to the sleepovers or whatever that might be. And so they go through life in a very defensive manner, of not knowing what to do. And they spend a lot of energy focusing on not making mistakes. And that typically means I'm going to hide, and I'm not going to say anything. And then we're not building any skills other than how to hide really well.
Yeah.
And we're
How to
trying
stay in
to
that comfort zone. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And you don't grow from there.
No.
And so it's creating those opportunities in the moment where it's happening provides a magical experience for me, because, I know all the players, I know their teachers, I probably know all their friends and their parents, and I can have a much more effective conversation with a student than I might if I only know them, in, Tuesday evening to come talk to me, because it's second or third hand information, and, and it may or may not be accurate.
Right.
But here we can go, okay, I don't think that was bullying. I think that was some feedback. And let's talk about what I saw. And it still hurts, but I think they were asking you to be quiet while we were watching the movie. And that's different than somebody bullying you.
And that peer coaching, they listen to that.
Absolutely. And it's great to be there when it's all happening. Or even talking to a third student that might impact the social dynamic with two other students. And so, students are learning and growing in a way that doesn't make them feel like they're in a treatment center or it's a big intervention, because who wants to be part of that all the time?
No.
So it needs to feel normal, and be yourself, and make tweaks where you need to, when you need to.
Little tweaks, because it's the little tweaks that make not these huge leaps, but it's the little ones.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And if you try for the big leaps, you're also sending the message that there's something wrong with you.
Yes.
and you are wrong, and that everything about you needs to change. And we know that's not true.
Right.
You know, but for all of us, we need to know, I'm going to this setting. How do I need to interact here versus someplace else? And it tends to be those minor tweaks that you have to learn and do for real to get better at it.
Yeah, practice.
Right. Because most of our students have had enough social groups to know the broad social rules of discourse with others. It's, you know, typically peers are harder than adults, you know, but it's navigating group conversations with peers where the topics can change every 40 seconds and keeping up with that. And, you know, peer slang or, you know, sarcasm is discovered in middle school and most people aren't good at it, you know, and so like, how do you interpret that? Or how do you do that better? How do you tell jokes? You know, lately we've been working on probably not good to tell Dave Chappelle or Chris Rock jokes because they're not your jokes and it can be offensive. And that's not what people are signing up to do when they hang out with you. And so like, how do we help you be funny? And that's a hard one.
So you mentioned the parents. I think I read that you have weekly meetings with them.
Not weekly here. I mean, well, as needed. So we meet a reasonable amount with parents and teachers, and then are communicating with them on a daily basis also on how things are going on here at school to keep them in the loop of the progress, because, you know, teenagers are teenagers. And so parents hear no news or, you know, sometimes only the one thing that didn't go well during a day.
That's true.
You know, and so it's so-and-so said their day was horrible. And we're like, really? Like, let's tell you what we saw. And then it you know, it might be one 15-second interaction is what they remember.
But that paints the whole picture for them.
Absolutely. Right. And makes sense with the background for a lot of our students, that's been their experience. That days don't go well. Or sometimes they're really good at talking about what's not right with them or what hasn't gone well, because that's how adults have interacted with them too. You know, let's work on your social skills or executive functioning or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into some of the questions here.
All right.
The first one is, how do I get my young adult to listen to my coaching? All I usually get is resistance.
Right. Pretty typical. There's not a single answer to this, but I think what really I'm encouraging families to do is be a little bit of a detective as well as a coach, and breaking out all the things that can be contributing to the resistance for coaching. The first thing I talk with families about are just understanding how change occurs. As adults, we can look at young people and go, okay, you're going to need to do X, Y, and Z, and this is what's coming down the track. And oh my gosh, we got to get this together for you. We're ready for change to happen. Not always the case for these adolescents. I think it's important to know that really first stage of change is not knowing that change has to happen at all. You're oblivious and you're happy doing what you're doing. Why should I get off the couch? I enjoy Minecraft. Like, this is, my day's pretty good. And if you come at that student with, okay, you know, high school starting, or you're going to go to college in 2 years, they don't even know what you're talking about.
Time to get a job.
Right, exactly. And then I think, you know, the next stage really is just that contemplating that change might even need to happen, you know. Still then just followed by, okay, I'm willing to start thinking about planning or things that I might be able to do. And it's not till stage 4 that individuals are ready to jump into change and start thinking about how to do it and practicing. And even if they're there, they're going to cycle back to the beginning again. And so you are constantly doing a spiral of ups and downs and backs and forths. So I want parents to start thinking about in any of those areas that you're trying to coach or make changes, like where is this individual coming from? Are they unaware? Are they contemplating it, but they're not sure what to do with it? Are they ready to sit down with you and develop goals and action plans and make that happen? Because once you start understanding where they're at in the process, you can shape your questions to help move that process forward. Someone who's not aware, you might talk to and say, okay, I understand that you want to be an animator. Okay, that's a great goal. How are we going to get there? How are you going to get the schooling to do that if you're not fill in the blank? So comments and questions that create some level of tension and discomfort as you're pointing that out, but in a way that's not a hammer coming down on them. So you're just doing that, and you're wanting to create tension because it needs to be less comfortable to sit on the couch than it is to try the next step ultimately, or we'd all be on the couch.
Yes.
Or many of us would be on the couch. But you need to do it in an artful coaching sort of manner to make that happen. Then if they're contemplating it, I think you're still doing a lot of highlighting the things, and you can have conversations about, okay, what's a good thing about making these changes? What are some pros for not making the changes? And just slowly going through that process. And it's important to note that as they start to sort of move forward, you have to hold yourself together, not to jump in and go, okay, I got them. They've turned the corner. Here, we're going to make progress goals and we're going to start tracking it, because you're going to lose them and they're going to recoil. So there truly is an art to that part. I think the other thing.
I like to picture a rubber band. It's like you can, here's where they are and here's what we want to do. You want just the right amount of tension on it, because if you pull it too far, it's going to snap in your face.
Right, exactly. And as change is happening, I think that understanding that just like the resilience component for these kiddos, because, I always say they only have a limited amount of fuel each day to devote to all that they're doing. And, as adults, I think we have a lot of routines and patterns. And so we're not going through the day making big decisions of, how to get dressed or brush your teeth or what's next. There's a lot of automation for us. For them, it's not always the case. So, their fuel consumption is probably double ours. And I know a lot of students whose tanks are empty by 11 o'clock and they're running on fumes. And so you really have to parse out what you're doing and slow down and go one step at a time. And that's at home as well as when, young adult is, moving out or going, to do other things that they're going to be tired. And it might not immediately be apparent, but it is happening and they need time to recharge and take a stepwise approach. So it's a broad answer to that question.
Yeah, it's an incrementality mentality, and meeting them where they are, as opposed to where you'd like for them to be. Right.
And the earlier you start, the better, because I think, if you're waiting till second semester of a senior year of high school to get them ready in 5 months to be doing big things, the parent's going to feel all the pressure because they're going to want those conversations to go quickly. And I think the earlier, even as little kids, just comment on, you won't be living with us forever. We're going to have you be independent, or, at some point that you're not going to be on the payroll anymore and you're going to have to learn to do whatever, or like whatever is appropriate for that student. But the more you bring it up in less pressured situations, the more that's a context for other pushing and going forward.
Yeah, if we do it in the middle of the drama, their amygdala's already shut us off.
Right.
They're not taking it in the prefrontal cortex. So we have to take it at a time when things are level.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. So here's the next question. How do we keep them how do we help them set goals, get a good picture in their minds about what their future will look like?
I think a little bit of what we were just saying. I think it's a lot of thinking out loud. As you know, I encourage parents to talk out loud when they're doing things during the day of, I need to go pay bills. I'm online, we have to pay for, for a mortgage or rent, or did you know that food's gone up or gas is really expensive, or, do we really need all those channels of cable? Are we using them? This is how much it costs. So I think it's that broader conversation initially. But then I think it's as they get older, I think it's also important to introduce that sort of commercial transaction at home too, of like, okay, how are you going to contribute here? Because that's important. If they're lucky enough to have a job, okay, maybe you can contribute a little bit, or you get to pay for some things that I've been paying for. I think it's a stepwise process there as well. But I think just a continuous conversation about it, again, outside of the panicked moment with it. And again, it's driving in the car is a great time to do it too, where you're just like, okay, we gotta go to the bank.
Yeah.
Right. And so you just talk about what it is, or if they go to the grocery store, wow, things have gotten expensive. And I think that tends to go better than we need to sit down and talk about how hard the world is. And you don't get this together, then you'll be on the street, or, those sort of conversations, which, I know have happened, but, it comes from the best place, but anxious parents trying to figure out, what they're going to do. And it's scary for everyone. So I'm always
what we do inside my courses. What we do inside my course is we break life into 10 parts, and then we put together what they've done, what they want next, and then what are they going to do the next week. And then we track how well they do doing it. They evaluate themselves. So what we try to do is make those cognitive links in each of the 10 areas. It's just, what do you want to be when you grow up? Is that kind of a question just sort of is too big. I like to break it down.
Right. Absolutely. Right. Well, and it's them doing it, which is key. And they're evaluating themselves.
Exactly.
Which I think gives you a really good measure. And it's them doing it as opposed to parents propping up the performance that you're seeing.
And then we figure out what are the thought blocks, what are the things that we're thinking that are getting in our way, and how can we reshape our thoughts so that we get the action in place. So it helps them get more aware of how their thoughts drive their results. Right. Yeah. Well, number 3 is there's a theme here. How do we get them to do more than play video games or watch YouTube?
Well, I would say that's a tricky one, and it's not a tricky one. I think the video games and the computer stuff can have some real benefit for this group. That there's peers, and there's relationships, and there's esteem, and all of those things are tied in with it. So it's never as easy as saying just take it away. But I think it's also important to help govern the amount that they're doing. And I think for some time, it's important that the parents go, it's got to go off at this time, and we're going to monitor it, and we got to put it away, because that learning doesn't occur unless you're walking alongside them and you're making that happen. And I think that's then a great conversation to talk about why you're concerned about the fact that they're up to 4 o'clock in the morning and sleeping until 12 or whatever it might be, and linking that to next step and future things. And then go back to that links to the change piece of how are you going to work in the animation world if you can't get to bed by at least 11 and get up in the morning, or whatever it might be. And how do you find people online that aren't in Australia in the middle of the night as the only people that you need to talk to? Like that has to happen. I think the problem with video games that I see too is that it becomes the only coping skill. And if they're only on a device to feel less anxious, we're not helping them. And if that's all they got, then I do think is you got to pull it back and let them find another coping skill when that device isn't there. When I was working with students who were living in apartments and going to college, we were a no-go on a lot of this stuff because I knew they weren't going to come out of their rooms. They weren't going to make friends with the person next door that they could be friends with because that's their safe place. And so I think you have to do that sort of investigation piece to know what's going on. Lynn, you froze on me. Are you hearing what I'm saying?
I am hearing what you're saying. Yeah, you've frozen a little and I've frozen, but it's okay. Keep going.
Oh, you got it. Okay, now you're moving. Okay, yeah. No, but I think sometimes you have to step in and be a parent and go, we're not doing it.
No,
it's not
there's
okay.
The boundary.
Because it's not functional,
Right.
Because it will not go away if you don't help them do that. And there are some individuals that you can take it away for a little bit and they can learn their lesson and then we can build forward. And then there's a lot that can't. And here at school, we struggle with the same thing. And for the most part, I don't think middle schoolers aren't typically capable of doing that self-regulation. I mean, it's a stimulation machine in their pocket all the time that they're going to think about if they're not touching it. And again, they're not learning other skills. They'll go like, what if I have to call my mom? Okay, well, the building has wired phones everywhere. Like you don't have to have it in your pocket. Like let's teach you to hold on to that, compartmentalize it, and then we'll press what we need to next, and we can make a call if we have to. So you have to keep doing that over and over again for them to learn it. Many think they'll die if the phone's not in their pocket or they're not on the screen. And so you really have to undo it. You're not employable if you have it. And I always say, like, our goal for students when they graduate is they need to show up on time. They need to get along with people most of the time. They need to meet expectations most of the time. And they need to learn to hold themselves accountable to the first three. And for any of us, if we can't do that in life, you're unemployable.
Yes.
You flat out. It doesn't matter if you have a doctorate or a training and whatever, no one cares.
Right.
And that's like the other harsh reality I tell students too, is like the world just doesn't care if you have a disability. They don't. There are millions of people out there that are willing to bend over backwards to help you, but you need to be able to communicate and ask for appropriate accommodations when they're needed. And you have to do those 4 things. If you can't do it, it's not going to happen.
No, you can have all the hard skills, but you got to have those soft skills. I mean, you can
absolutely
programming, but it's half and half. It's not 80-20. It's really half and half.
Right. Because we would all rather, I mean, everyone would love superstars working for them, but I'll tell you what, I could pass on the superstar that's not going to do those things of showing up and getting along with people and meeting expectations with occasional genius. Give me the plugger who shows up and works their tail off and communicates. Like, I'll bend over backwards to help that person. And I think that's a big reality shift when you step out of high school and life becomes voluntary and people aren't required to give accommodations, or they're very limited anyway in college, and you have to take responsibility for them, which is so great when you were talking about, assessing yourself and how did we do on what we were talking about this week. Because it's, people can coach you, but you have to own it, and you're in the driver's seat more now than ever before.
Yeah. And that's why I teach them. There's 10 journaling tools that I teach them that help them, cement their commitment, notice their thinking, figure out what to learn from something that didn't go well, and then move on from that. That those are the tools that I want them to have. And then some other mindset tools that just help them shift away from the pain of being hurt. There's a lot.
And out of the panic or anxiety of the moment. Let's go back to that. Okay, what's really supposed to be happening today? And what do I need to be doing? Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let me turn on to that. You just led right into the next question, which was how do we conquer our fear of their future? So well, you're teaching them how to regulate all day at school. We're trying to figure out how to regulate ourselves too.
Well, it's scary. I think parents can, wake up in the middle of the night panicking of how are they going to support themselves. Even if there's money available for them to be independent, like how are they going to do it? And
Yeah.
what's going to happen? And I think that parents being a detective and stepping back and doing that assessment of like, who are we? Who is this child I'm trying to, get independent? What are their strengths and weaknesses? What are next steps that we can do? Is crucial, because if you don't have a framework to work within as a parent, you're always going to be panicked. And then what happens is that you start getting on the internet and clicking on things that seem like they're going to be that quick fix, and you just start throwing everything at it. And this is what I was hoping to bring to the world with this book, of like helping parents slow down, because at least when I was early on working with this population 20 years ago, I had my own anxiety about it, and everybody would try to sum everything down into, we need to have social skills groups and we need to fix their executive functioning problems. And I remember thinking, right, but I think it's more complicated than that.
Yes.
And just because they're stuck doesn't mean they need to go to a social skills group, or they're even ready for that, or interested in it, or if anyone can figure out how to rewire brains so that there's no executive functioning issues, like we're talking Nobel Prize sort of stuff. And
we'll take that magic wand.
Right, and that's not there, right?
But it's not there, yeah.
But we can, when people are motivated and they know what they're going, or they have something to achieve, all of a sudden it's miraculous how personal hygiene can improve, or being on time, or accepting accommodations that are available for them at school, or even willingness to work on taking their medication on their own. Like all of those things can happen if you have those other things laid out. And I think as a parent, if you have a strategy that is always fluid, but sort of stepwise, and you know where you're at, and you know where the next reasonable step needs to be, you'll be able to check yourself when you're anxious in the middle of the night to go, no, we don't need to all of a sudden change what we're doing and shift. We need to keep the course if that's what makes sense. You just have to have your own structure and team around you. You have to have coaches. Yes. You got to have your own counselor sometime to talk through these things. But you got to have a plan, or you're just going to keep grasping at whatever sounds like the next quick fix. And then that's going to delay progress even further, because you're not building those skills or helping your child build those skills that they're going to need to have going forward.
The one thing that made the biggest difference for me, and this was years ago, we have 6 kids and 3 are diagnosed. And I think there's another one that wasn't ever diagnosed that's older. And the one thing that helped me recently, in the last 5 years, is we scheduled time to be together. Nice. So he and I took walks every day after 5.
Yeah.
So that in and of itself was a small action, but it had huge benefits. Cool. First,
great conversations, I imagine, on those walks.
Right. Well, as long as I was willing to shut up.
Right. Yeah.
I had to really learn how to listen and to stop suggesting, advising, and criticizing.
Right.
And, this was a learning on my part.
Right.
And once I got past that, I don't know, a lot of the fear went away, because I could see where he was, and he could start to trust me too, to really notice who he was.
Right.
And since then, my daughter, who's 25, he's 29 now, we meet every morning and work out together. And then we have a meditation time, and that's when things come up too. Right. So I have found that just those times, if we can just get it right, because they stopped being in the car with me because they can drive now. So
right, yeah.
I miss my driving time, but when we schedule these walks and the time that we exercise, which really has helped her overall, just her feeling of joy and then even that she loves it, I felt better too. a lot
Right.
better, because I really got to know them and I got to help them problem solve the little things. It's those little things. It's not the big, what major am I going to have? Although that comes up.
Right.
But it's like, how am I going to get the next course and choose the next course? So
Right.
that was the one thing that made the biggest difference for me,
Right.
was scheduling
And it's a
time.
calmer space too when you're moving.
Yeah.
I think you're just.
We were side by side too. That was the other thing that I think
Right.
made a difference, rather than, sitting at the table kind of, but the
Right.
side by side, just talking.
Well, that listen piece is critical, and then like a common question I like to ask while I'm mostly listening, is if they're struggling, I'll go, so is this your anxiety do you think that's behind what the struggle is? Or do you think, is this related to your dyslexia or whatever it might be? And just in we're not trying to change anything, but we're just saying, well, we both know that that's a struggle you have. Do you think that's what's happening? And, quite often they'll be like, no, it has nothing, like that affects me here, but it doesn't affect me there. Or this isn't an autism thing. This is whatever it might be. And I think as adults, as much as we try not to, you want to look at sort of the big categories and put everything in there. And so it's good to get that feedback. And then it's also nice just to normalize and introduce that in a conversation in a way that doesn't feel attacking.
Yes.
It's just part of the discourse, and model that for yourself too, right? If you're, I'm feeling really anxious today, or, I'm really a bad speller, or I'm not a whatever. And just normalize the conversation about all of our flaws and strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, I really felt like we got a lot closer.
Yeah.
I was able to share the struggles that I have, and I was saying, I was able to say, geez, I really blew that. I'm sorry.
Right.
Let me tell you here, can we do it again? Do I get a do-over?
Right. Exactly. And then because you're really working to build a relationship where you're not peers, but it is adult to adult interactions. Yes. You're not talking to a 7-year-old anymore. Right. And I think that's probably the hardest shift for parents, because what you're also seeing is inconsistency in maturity. That, it's a 18-year-old who wants to be 25 and who's acting 14 at the time. Like, how do you thread that needle? But you got to keep, you have to do it all, but you really have to look for those moments where it can be, adult to adult, honest conversations about things.
Right out there, lay it out. And it's been delightful, because, I love him, all the way down to I love him just the way he is. I always have.
Right.
And I just want him to get what he wants out of life.
Right. And that's helping them figure that out, I think, is the other scary piece. Parents do. And how fast to go toward that.
Yes.
That, I always go back to, like, what are the foundational skills we're going to need to have to get there?
Yes.
And a lot of times I end up slowing down parents, because I'd be like, oh, my friend's ready to be an animator, and we're going to send them out to California, and they're going to do this thing, and it's going to be great. And you're like, whoa. Like, no, like, again, show up on time, get along with people, meet expectations, because I've seen scenarios where everyone's on board, it seems great, and they jump in too soon, and that door closes. And that individual's not willing to go back there again, because it's another failure and they don't want to do it. And so it's slow down. Lots of our kids go on to college out of Humanx Academy, but we really want the vast majority to start at community college. And we'll do concurrent enrollment here, so we can do it with them for a while. Learn how to do it, and it's never about your IQ scores or all of those things, right? It's about the organizing, or 2 minutes late to a class and you're anxious to walk in because you think everyone's going to turn around and think you're an idiot. Or how do you write an email to a professor that's polite and appropriate? Or, you didn't do well on the test. What do we do next?
Now what?
Those are the soft skills that you have to do the other thing. And for other students, go work in a supportive environment for a while and learn how to be an employee and be independent there, and then we can get to the college thing. So there's
and not to mention all the social skills that they're going to develop at that job.
Absolutely. Right. And it's reverse engineering.
Yeah.
And I know for a lot of the parents I work with, like all of us really, we only know our road
Right.
and the lens of how we did it.
Yep.
And so it's important to pull in other people who can say, that's great and it worked for you. But let's look at what we've put together. Like that strategy doesn't make sense for your kiddo right now.
Yeah.
They can get there, but their trajectory hasn't changed just because they're 18.
Right.
It's always been different than their peers. And let's just be creative and make sure we keep momentum going and not get stuck.
Yeah. Meeting them at where they are and then taking them forward at their pace.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And letting go of your anxiety that it's not fast enough.
Yes.
Or it's not, living up to what their siblings are doing or their neighbors or whatever it might be. And I think that's, for parents, all the milestones are a reminder that they're on a different trajectory, and that can be heartbreaking.
Yeah, I like to, just imagine for myself, I just like to take that whole developmental timeline and stretch it, to
right.
to the 20s and even into the 30s, because you can
Yes.
still see the mile markers, but they're not in the same place as the other, not
right.
autistic, not 2Es, not whatever, learning disabled
right.
people. Yeah, it's
right.
just different. And thank God we
right.
live so long, so who cares? Really?
Oh, absolutely, right. And that 1 year seems like it'd be terrible, and it's not, right? But I'm like,
And not when you're
whatever
going
it
to live
takes
to
to
100,
get momentum.
what difference?
Right. You just have to be having forward progress. And I
Yes.
like anything not to get inertia, because it is
Right.
hard to get started again.
Yes.
And, we know that if you're out in the world experiencing new things, you are developing new connections between the neurons in your brain,
Yes.
which open up all sorts of things. And if you're practicing playing video games and sitting on the couch, like that's what you're going to be good at. Learn to do something different. We have a lot of our students. There's an organization in town here in Denver called TACT, Teaching the Autism Community Trades. Wonderful
Yes.
organization.
You're lucky. Yes.
And so like welding, computer stuff, woodwork, electronics, audio, automotive. And I know some of those kids will actually follow into the trades and take advantage of the relationships they have with organizations, but others are learning how to go do something that's completely out of their comfort zone. Like learn to use a welder and not burn yourself, or make a cutting board. It's expand your world and your horizons. And at minimum, you'll learn you don't like it and that's not what you want to do, but that's great.
That's perfect.
But then you might meet someone else who has another idea, and they're building those sorts of connections and learning to just look out in the world. We have another organization has a coffee shop in town here, and students can work and do coffee, and it's the same thing. Are they going to be baristas forever? Probably not, but that's not the point. And if that's what your child needs to do for a few years to get the confidence to do other things, that's what they're doing. But they need to have a reason to get up in the morning and go someplace and do something other than turn over and turn on their phone. And I think that's critical. And then as you watch, your child, your young adults, developing young adult experience these things, you're going to learn more about them and what they're ready for than ever would otherwise. They have to be out there experiencing things while people are supporting and watching.
Yeah. We have an additional question that just came in from Marcia. I'm just noticing it. Sorry, Marcia. My daughter is flailing since graduating high school in May. She has lost 5 jobs in 6 months. What advice do you have to help her get on a track to independence? Thanks, Marcia, for the question.
No, it's a good. I wish. I'm interested in wondering why the jobs were lost, because I think that's an important part of the puzzle here. Is it a scenario where you might benefit from a job coach and going sort of like a voc rehab approach, or just working with an employer that would let you hire a job coach to be in there and do the coaching for them, or where the job's a poor fit. But either way, I suspect a coach would be helpful, because somebody needs to point out the things that they really might be missing. And it could be how they're talking to their employer. It could be wanting to take too many breaks or not understanding the rules.
Could be missing an important item that they don't do consistently, is just annoying other people.
Absolutely. And like, I'm wondering about what her level of ability to advocate for herself is.
Yes.
Be able to say,
boy, that one's a tough one. Yes.
Can you show it to me in writing and have me practice it with you? Because that's how I can learn it. Like, that's key. And I know, hands down, the students I think that have the most trouble with these transitions are those that can pass as normal, and don't look outwardly different to other people. And so students that can, do a job interview well and seem pretty on top of it, and have learned to hide any of their disabilities, really suffer, because employers don't have any idea, and they work with enough, neurotypical young people who are flakes and don't show up or are disrespectful or whatever. And I've seen it where kids just,
they get painted with that brush. And
right.
It's
and
really
it's like, you don't care.
That.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I had a year or so ago, I had an interaction with a student who his ideal job was to be a salesperson at like Staples or something like that. This was going to be great. And we're like, perfect. Like, you can do this. This would be awesome. And we were talking about filling out the application and communicating with the manager. And I said, okay, well, we know this is how you learn. What do you think about like communicating that with your manager? Like, I need to, can you show me how to do it a few times before I need to do it? Or if they ask something about that, like, how would you respond to that? And they're like, forget it, not going to go. I am not going to apply for that job.
Feels overwhelming. Yep.
Right. And you go, like, we have to work on that, because again, the world will bend over backwards.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So good. So good. Yeah, let's get to question number 6 here. This is I find myself resisting being an expert. My 15-year-old still needs advice. He doesn't know everything.
Right.
So how do I reel myself in?
Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard. I think you got to get a piece of paper out yourself and strategize sort of the 10 ways you're going to respond to this, and try to stick with it, because they don't know anything and they think they know everything, which is the killer. And you're like, oh my God. But I think it's pointing out, incongruencies in what they're doing and what they're saying they want. And then I think it's also all right, again, to sort of introduce sort of real life scenarios to the choices they're making. So if they're needing to get stuff done and they don't jump in and fix it for them. And
that has been the hardest.
So it's really hard.
Sit on your hands. Yeah.
No, it's really, especially if we're talking about like the academic piece and how do we get them through school and what's going to happen and what if they get delayed. And I think that's, I think you really need to sit down and think about what that needs to look like, and how, natural consequences to a degree, create a little tension within that 15-year-old to help them understand what's going on. But the better you're able to sit down ahead of time and like write this out on paper and how you're going to, approach it and what you're going to say, that you have a game plan that could shift, but but before you shift it, go back to the game plan and be sure that it's wrong before you bounce around a little bit. So I think that consistency, and I think just talking about what expectations will be like when they're 16, 17, 18, 20, 25, and providing context for all of your irritating comments that you're making to them or whatever it might be. They just want to be independent and they want to be left alone.
Yes, they do.
And many of these these guys that they don't want to be a problem to fix anymore. And that's been their experience, right? So
yeah,
you have to understand that context as well. But you got to have a plan.
Ross Greene's proactive, collaborative problem-solving process.
Right.
I love it. You know, where you start out and you state the problem, which is just the facts, and then you ask them, how do they think about it? And then you just listen, and, you know, zip the lips until it's all out on the table. And then you tell them how you feel about it, because this does have to be something that satisfies both of you. And then you find where the two of you meet. And then you agree on just the one tiny little thing you're going to do next. So I love that. Because
quite often there's logic behind some of what 15-year-olds are saying in their own mind, you know, and it's logic in that isolated moment. And they're not thinking about logic that are the next steps that we're worried about. And so I think that's really productive dialogue to go, okay, I hear what you're saying. In this scenario, maybe not, and I could be flexible, but here's what I'm worried about. I'm worried that there's a lot that's going to change as you get older, and we got to help you figure out how to navigate that. And that's there. And then maybe the conversation is just about, here's what's coming, and here's what I feel responsible to teach you. And together, can we work on this? Like, we got to start making that happen and be collaborative.
Yeah, that collaborative piece is the reciprocity that is sometimes lagging with our kids, often lags with our kids. But if we show them that the steps, okay, the first thing is we're going to agree on the problem, you know, just the facts. Then we're going to talk about what you think. And when we think about, talk what they think first, then they feel seen, you know, soothed and safe. Then we share where we are. And then together we come up with a solution, just the first thing. And we don't even call it a solution. I like to call it an experiment. You know, let's just see if it works or not. Let's try the first thing, you know. And then keep coming back. It's that consistency. That's the challenge on our part, is to be consistent.
Absolutely. But the collaborative has to happen, because, you know, after high school, parents just can't be as involved anymore. And you better be on the same team.
Yeah, when they go to work and they start to have a problem, there were two. He was being bullied by a group of girls at his work, and then he was actually having some sexual harassment going on, and it was scary. I mean, you know, some guy was, anyway. So, you know, those are tricky when you're not autistic. They're really tricky when you are.
Absolutely.
It's just so many opportunities for people to misinterpret what is happening with you. Right.
And if you're not a team, you know, those young adults won't share sometimes because they think they're in trouble. And I don't want you to be mad at me, rather than tell me about your day. How did it go? Without an agenda to fix things.
Yes. In fact, I love to remind us that our role as parents of young adults, I don't care what, all young adults, we have 3 roles. And the first one is we encourage. The second one is we warn. And the third one is we are consulted. And I was trying to find the source where I found that from, and it's actually Richard and Richard Eyre. They wrote a book anyway, and his wife wrote a book, Richard and Linda Eyre. But when I Googled those 3 things, guess who else has that role? The Queen of England.
Oh, interesting there. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
That's awesome.
She doesn't legislate.
Yeah.
She doesn't, you know, but she encourage, warn, and be consulted. So, but the part for us, we want to encourage in a way that they still feel safe. We want to warn in a way that they still feel safe. And if they don't feel safe, they won't consult us. So that safety really underlines it all. But it just, puts a
Right.
smile on
That's
my face
great.
when I imagine a crown on my head.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was really helpful. Linda and Richard Iyer, they wrote a whole series of books. In fact, years ago, they took all 9 of their children live on Oprah. Now there's courage.
Wow. That's,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they're just wonderful people. So let's go to the last question, formal question that we have is how to help your teenage students transition from doing with prompts to doing without prompts.
The first thing that comes to mind there, I think finding that thing that they're striving for
Yes.
is probably the biggest hook. That if you can link it to a job they want or a friend they want to develop or school or college or work or whatever it might be, there's a reason for it. It's amazing how magic things can happen. And that unfortunately happens at different times for different students. You know, again, I think the more they're out in the world doing things, the more opportunity they can see where those things are helpful. You know, I always laugh a bit when schools are, you know, handing out all the day planners, the hard copy stuff to all the kids. And that's totally a we're going to do with you or for you scenario. And it really is, we're introducing the idea of a schedule and you're going to put things in it. But I don't think I've ever met anyone who productively uses that on their own without a teacher saying, write something down in it. But it doesn't mean, I suppose, that it's not helpful at some point. Those students nowadays might not use a hard paper schedule planner thing because they can use all the electronics, right?
Everything
again,
they can get it on their phone because
right.
I know that they won't lose it that way.
Right. So I think it's good to continue doing it with them, and I think the more they get into the world and there's things to schedule for or whatever it might be, they'll start to use it on their own. But don't be discouraged that it's not happening right away.
Yes.
Because we don't know when that's going to tick over. Again, everyone I've ever worked with, no matter what their struggles were, will get to a place where they know they need to be places on time. But until they know they need to do it themselves, you're still going to be a parent for them.
So it's get there on time, get along, and
meet expectations. And then hold yourself accountable.
Hold yourself. Yeah, those are 4. That's a great summary of what you're going to need in the work world.
Right. And I suppose the other thing to think about too is like, this has changed, and where are they in that process? And it sounds like they're sort of contemplating the need for doing whatever you're needing them to do, and that prompts are helpful because it's happening, but it's still very dependent on you, and that's fine. So they're practicing the skill while contemplating taking over that skill themselves, and and maybe occasionally practicing and acting on it, but they're sort of cycling in that, and they're not ready to take it on and maintain it. And so, approach it in a way that's consistent with where they are on that change piece. Yes, meeting them right where they are, noticing it. And then I like to still, suggest that problem solving process together. If you say, hey, here's what's happening. You have a checklist and I'm reminding you every step of the way. Do we agree on that? Yes. Okay. So what do you think about moving it to the point where you're going to do it on your own? Cycle all those thoughts out. Well, I'm going to tell you, because you're going to need this, because if you want to become a voice actor, game designer, animator, you're going to need all that. Right. And so what's the one thing we can do next? Right. Let's do an experiment. You tell me, how would you like to conduct that? Right. Yeah. No, I think that's perfect, because that's appropriate to where they're at in that process. Yeah. And just keep cycling that process through. It's not the lecture. Let me tell you how hard it was when we walked both, in the snow both ways, uphill and all that. Right. Exactly. It's like, Mom, you guys didn't even have hair dryers, so don't talk to me about that. Exactly. Or that panicked, you're not going to be employable. You're not, and you go into the, this has got to change, right?
and they mirror that right in their amygdala, shuts down their brain, and then it's just fireworks from that point on.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so hard to, and I just think that safety is such a consideration, that they just have to feel safe to share with us. You know, maybe not 100%, because some things, you know, they still don't necessarily want to share, but most of it, you know. Yeah. So we've got about 5 more minutes. What do you think about, do you have any concluding thoughts or any things that you'd like to pull together at the end here?
I think I would say to all parents, this is something that you can do. This is possible. You can get your teen, developing young adult to greater independence. It is absolutely going to happen. You just need a strategy. You need a support team around you, for sure. But you need to approach it in a way that makes sense for your circumstance. And take the time to build that. Pull all the data you have, talk to all the supports, look at all the testing data that you have that might seem overwhelmed. Find someone who can tell you what that means and what that might look like at next steps. And develop a strategy that makes sense for you. Try to set aside the anxiety.
Let's see if I can get it to go back. Yeah, I just found a question I forgot to ask. How can they connect to and grow their team who supports and encourages them the best way?
Well, I think if you have one good person on your team, talk to them about what else might need to be added.
Such a good idea.
You know, I think start there. You know, I would say most families have a counselor or a psychiatrist or a coach or somebody they're working with. So what else do we need here? You know, I love to find coaches or people that can meet students out in the world where they are. I think is really helpful, especially if they're a college student. You know, the counselor who's in an office might not always have the flexibility to say, I'm going to meet you in the library and let's look at your syllabus and let's break it out, and, you know, finding those moments to work in the moment with them. But just keep asking everybody what else needs to happen, and yourself. And then, you know, I suppose before all of this, ask your teen or developing young adult, like what else do you need? Like, how can we help you feel better about what's going on? And, you know, do the experiment. Let's see if this helps. Is this useful for you? Let's try it out. And, you know, I think you'll be amazed how insightful they can be about what needs they have. But it's continually asking the questions. I always talk about just stuff like that case conceptualization of, okay, here's where we are. Here's where we are. This is what's going to happen next. How are we going to get there? You know, daily, weekly, for sure, you got to look at it and go, okay, I'm frustrated. Are we on the right track? Or is this something that we need to tweak a little bit? And it can be either answer. Sometimes you're doing exactly what you need to be doing, and we just got to keep doing it for a while. And then other times you go, ooh, I didn't think that was going to happen. I thought they were going to do better and it didn't work. Or, you know, I thought they were going to do worse and I'm completely blown away about what's happening. And you have to adjust yourself to what you're seeing. So big picture first, and then start working on the details. But it has to be right for you, not just, you know, that impulse, you know, buy for the quick 10 steps to whatever we're working on.
Yeah.
It doesn't tend to work, and I think it delays progress.
Yeah, gets everybody frustrated. Well, I do think that parenting our children gives us an Ivy League education.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
Right? Because with 6 kids, I can tell you not one of them is the same.
Right.
You know, if they could get the same, then I could get good at this, but they're they're not.
Right.
So I just have had to put a structure in place that works for all of them, and then but has a ton of flexibility, you know, so they can customize it.
Right. And you're not a bad parent because your child's struggling. Doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong.
That separation.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, 6 kids and 6 different personalities.
Yeah.
You know, you're doing a great job. You just have to tool what you're doing to make sense for each individual kid and where they're at.
Yeah. And I find the joy in each one of them. It's amazing, you know, how much joy they've brought me. So I don't want to suggest at all that this is a one-way street. It's a 2-way street. Yep. We feel very lucky. We have 8 grandchildren already, and
that's great.
One great grandchild and another one on the way.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yes. And so
well, I learn something every day.
I
from
do too.
students. And
Yeah,
and
more
that's
than
the
one
fun
day.
of it, you know?
Yeah,
You're like, huh, okay.
yeah,
So be
yeah,
open for that as well.
yeah.
And I would say
We're
also find a group of parents that are on the same page, that have the same experience. Ideally that are positive and future focused and not just stuck and wanting to be negative about things, but find that support team for yourself, because I think those shared experiences are so valuable and provide perspective, and you don't feel alone when someone says, I've been there, you know,
exactly.
I'm a few steps ahead, but here's what happened for us. And I wonder if that's the same for you. I think your own
Yeah.
support is super critical, because
Well, that's what we're
you can
trying
feel
to
very
do
alone and
in,
isolated.
yeah, that's what we're trying to do in the Art of Adulting in the, in the course coaching and
Right.
community that we have. I'm available every 2 or 3 times a week for them. And then also,
Right.
we can talk to each other and know that, it's a struggle and it's all worth it. It is absolutely
Right.
worth it.
Absolutely. No, you will get there. I have no question that you will help them find their place. Just
Yeah.
persevere and have a plan.
It's inevitable. We just have to
Yes.
go through it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thanks again, Tom. I just can't tell
Oh,
you how awesome this has been. I really appreciate your time, and I just can't I just can't wait to see what's going to happen. Maybe we'll touch bases in a year and see how things are going.
would be glad to do it. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed the conversation. It's always fun to talk about this stuff.
Oh, great. And we'll get you the links to the replay and the actual video so you can have it. So thanks everybody for
Awesome.
coming. I so appreciate it. And we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Tom.